good evening. My name is Sarah Taylor. I am the Programming Manager at the Johnson County Public Library. And welcome to tonight's Authors at JCPL presentation. We would first like to thank our partners at Franklin College for hosting us here tonight. And also thank you to Barnes & Noble for attending to sell books for us this evening. Before we begin, if you could all please silence your cell phones for me. Thank you. And now it is my honor to introduce tonight's guest speaker. Lisa Scottoline is the New York Times best-selling and Edgar Award-winning author of 31 novels. Published in over 35 countries, she has over 30 million copies of her book in print. She also writes a weekly column with her daughter, Francesca, for the Philadelphia Inquirer titled Chick Wit. These hilarious stories have been adapted into a critically acclaimed series of memoirs. The newest title, I See Life Through Rosé-Colored Glasses, will be published in July. We are here tonight to celebrate Lisa's newest novel. Riveting and disquieting, After Anna is a nail-biting domestic thriller filled with complex characters, legal intrigue, and plenty of twists and turns, promising to keep readers on their toes until the final shocking page. As I introduce Lisa tonight, it's important to talk about her work, of course, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the fascinating information about her personally. What you may not learn about Lisa from her books is that she is a die-hard Philadelphia Eagles fan. Here in Colts country, so welcome. She is an engaging speaker, which we'll see firsthand tonight. No pressure, Lisa. And an avid pet lover. She also does an incredible amount of research for her books. From taking boxing lessons to driving up the steps of the Art Museum of Philadelphia just to see if it was possible, Lisa has done it all. But my favorite fun fact about Lisa is that she keeps a cardboard cutout of Bradley Cooper in her office 24/7, I assume as inspiration. And on that note, if you could please join me in welcoming Lisa Scottoline.
System. I'm a big fan of libraries. So tonight what I'm going to do is entertain you. You'll learn nothing. We'll talk for about, I say we'll talk. I'll talk. I'll start out talking about myself and then I'll segue into talking about myself. And then we can have question and answers all about me. You'll understand completely why I'm divorced twice. It's although I'm just pointing out to you my engagement ring. I'm not engaged. I just bought the ring. And then, like 4 months later, I decided I was ready to commit, so I bought the wedding band. I told my daughter, she said, "Mom, I think this one's gonna last." I said, "Yeah, 3rd time's the charm." Anyway, wow, amazing. I went to this because I'm very, I'm kind of like, I wake up a little caffeinated most days, and so I need like space. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and part of it is because I never get to Indianapolis. They never let me out of my little crate in Philadelphia. But really, I'm delighted to be here because it's a library. Can we take a second to talk about libraries and why they matter? Please try not to notice me doing this. I grew grew up in a really wonderful, very loving Italian-American family. Lots of hugs, lots of meatballs, one book. What was the book that was in the Scottoline family house?
Bible.
The Bible. Aren't you nice? No, it was not. The Bible. It was TV Guide. I'm not kidding. There was no book. There was not a single book. There were TV trays. Did you have TV trays? Okay, I'm just being real with you. Welcome to me. I didn't even discover there were books until the school library. Were any school librarians here? God bless you. God bless you. Because it was a school librarian who turned me on the books. I saw that Lucille Ball was not on the cover of everything. And they actually, the school librarian took me, my parents called them into my elementary school and said, your daughter loves books, take her to the library. And my father said, oh, okay. He's so agreeable and so adorable. And they took me to the library. He drove me there, but he waited outside in the car like a dog. Why would you go to the library? There's no TV in them. Now there's TVs in the library, so the Scottoline had a fighting chance, but then, forget it. So I was in the library stacks, and I was that kid on the floor, and I bet there are a few of you like this, who were like, why can I only take out 12? That's so mean. It was like an NCAA thing, like which will make the cut. It was like brackets. And I also didn't know how to choose a book, so I would look, and I'm going to take you back. Because you would look in the back of the book, and there was a card that slid in and out. See, Sarah's too young to know this. But people would write on the card with something called a pencil. What? And I would go, oh, that person has nice handwriting. Maybe I'll take that book. Not a great way to choose a book. And then it would be like, a lot of the books had a profile of somebody who had a really big nose. All of the Scottolinis, we can barely stand up actually. My mother likes to say that we get more oxygen than anyone in the room. Like, it's true, like if I breathe in, you could die. It's very sad. So I identified with him because he had a big nose. And then what happened next was, as I grew up, I found out he wasn't even Italian. His name was Sherlock Holmes. And that's why I'm a mystery writer today. Okay, you impressed yet? See, this is the funny thing. I'm so happy to come out on tour and meet people, but I think what secretly happens is you might have a good opinion of me, and then you meet me, and then you're completely disillusioned. And then you drive home and you go, gosh, she might be a little nutty. But it's the real truth, because what I found in the library, the most important thing why I owe libraries so much, is that as much as I was loved at home, I can't say they really got me because of the reading thing. Like my mother said, stop reading, it will ruin your eyes. Like, go out and play, stop reading, what's with the reading? And when I got my library card, I still remember my library card. I was from Pennsylvania, so it was orange, had a little metal plate, and you could ink it. Did you have that? So if you were a real big book geek, like your new favorite author, yeah, I would go home and ink it. My number, I always remembered it, was 5359. Like, I don't remember what hotel room I'm in, but I know that library card number. And by the way, it is now my cell phone number. Makes me so happy. But when I think about that, and this is why I owe such a great debt to libraries, it was really that. And it's not me per se, as the lawyers would say. I think I get to stand here in a representative capacity because I was really loved, but you never know, truly, what is going on in someone's house, like behind closed doors. The library is a resource, is a place to go, is an acceptance. For that library card meant to me, we're your people. We get you. We're as crazy about books as you are. We don't think you're nuts because you like books. Come here. And it was a little bit like a ticket and a passport and all those things. That's why I remember it so much, because there was so much emotionality, connected with it for me. And a library gave me that. It's about self-esteem. And I think I get to be here for all the kids who are crushing your thresholds all over the county. You don't know what they go home to, but you know what you provide for them. And we'll talk later about that. By we, you know what I'm talking about. But I want to return to that point. So this is a great big thank you. And thank you to all of you for being here and for supporting your library system. This is for you. So anyway, what does this matter? Well, then basically what happened was I was in the library, I discovered somebody I hope you met there too, and her name was Nancy Drew. Can we talk about the girl detective for a minute, because it actually matters. I remember Nancy Drew so much, and whenever you read anything, think about, people who are writing it, they choose certain details. I can't give you all the details, but there's some they give you that are telling. So Nancy Drew, let's think about her. She had a girlfriend, because we have girlfriends, yay! She had a boyfriend, because she wasn't a middle-aged woman. 62 to be exact, and dying on the vine, and dead below the waist. This is all adults, right? All right, you get it. And she had a boyfriend, she had a father, he was sort of half interested, but remarkably, for popular American fiction, she did not have what? A mother. Exactly. So you have to say to yourself, what's going on with that? I will suggest to you, it's a little bit like in To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes. When you don't have a mother, you have an adventurous daughter. Your daughter's free, because my mother would have had Nancy Drew in a convent. Because Nancy Drew was driving around in what? The most telling detail of all time. Who remembers? The Roadster. The blue Roadster. And I think that matters. Because in a way, at least for me, the kid on the floor of the library, Nancy Drew was the Roadster. Nancy Drew was having adventures. She was bold. You know the way that we, in America, it's quintessentially American to have a car. Drive around in your car. See the USA in your Chevrolet. Please tell me you know that commercial. All right, here's a less dated reference. Bruce Springsteen, Thunder Road. Roll down the window and let the wind blow back your hair. These four wheels will take us anywhere. Cars are freedom, adventure, boldness, strength, bravery. Nancy Drew was all of those, and by the way, may I suggest to you that she was in the driver's seat. She was a girl in the driver's seat. She was nobody's passenger. Not like a lot of the images for girls at that time. I mean, part of the reason, sadly, I think she sticks with us is because we didn't have a whole hell of a lot else. Is that okay if I said that? It would just break the seal on profanity. I'll try to stop it there. But that's a true thing. So anyway, Nancy Drew always stayed with me. I love books. I grew up reading them. And now we're going to fast forward to my first divorce. You see the way I just segued into the disaster of my life? I became a lawyer. I loved it. I married a lawyer. We had a baby. And just when she was crowning, is what I... That's a true fact. The marriage disintegrated. It was over. And all of a sudden, I know, thank you for your sympathy, but really, it was great. Because basically, you're such an she's good emotional, you have a bad poker face. But you're great for me. What happened next was that everything went to hell. I basically was getting a divorce. I had this wonderful baby who amazingly I fell in love with, and then I said, well, you're a trial lawyer, you can't go back to work. What are you gonna do now? And by the way, I had no alimony. I told my dad I was making a statement. He said, what's a statement, that you're stupid? Yeah, it's kind of a stupid thing to do. But the bottom line is, here I was, single mom. I had roots, I did my roots for you. I had roots, I had like the kind of roots you see in women's prison. Like felony level incarceration, lockdown type. It was a disaster. I was broke, it was horrible, and I said, you know what though? You always wanted to be a writer. You're the kid from Nancy Drew, and I'm reading like a fiend. I read everything, and then around that time, there was a guy who was pretty famous. His name was John Grisham. Not Italian. And I said, why are there no women in the lead? Like, there were still Perry Mason, and all the women were still Della Street. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But you get the idea. The women were still pouring the coffee in crime fiction. Fast forward to when I would become president of Mystery Writers of America, and there's still only 3 of them. But in any event, here I am saying, you have a baby, you want to stay home and raise that baby, because that's what basically happened. And you have no money, which is a bad life plan. Like, don't try this at home. And I said, what are you going to do now? Well, I thought to myself, you can't get broker than broke. Turns out you can. And I did. But try to become a writer, because you were an English major. You went to University of Pennsylvania, took a year-long course with Phil Roth. My major was American Contemporary Fiction. Well, hell, maybe you should give it a whirl. And so that's when I started writing. Write, take care of my baby girl all day long. Everything's great. I was happiest I've ever been. I was incredibly broke. But I charged everything. That's how I lived. You're wondering how I lived. See, now get ready for the disillusioning part, if you aren't already. Here's your hint. Here's how to live beyond your means. Cuddle up and listen. If you pay the minimum amount at the same time every month, clockwork, like the $10 they used to want back then, they will, not only are they fine with that, they increase your credit limit. They think you're either on crack cocaine or trying to become an author, and either way, they don't care. They're fine with that. I'm like, you know what, I'm fine with that too. So I'm charging our life. And I'm writing and writing and writing. I'm getting rejected all over the place. My favorite rejection letter was from a New York agent. Let me share it with you. He said, we don't have time to take any more clients, and if we did, we wouldn't take you. Thank you. You know, I see him at Book Expo, which is our big 30 bestsellers later. Sorry, 38. I see him. Oh, you have no idea how petty I am. I can be so dark. He called to me. This was 2 years ago when I was the keynote. Lisa, I don't hear you. I'm too busy to have time to talk, and if I had time to talk to anybody, I wouldn't talk to you. Right, terrible. Nobody should crush anybody's dreams, especially in this country. This is all about the First Amendment, and you can be whatever you want to be, and you have a right to try, damn it. I didn't ask anybody else to fund it, which brings me back to how I funded it, because I got to 38 grand in debt at 21% interest. You could get money cheaper from the mob, and don't ask me how I know that. Just take it on faith that it's true. And here I was at 38 grand, but amazingly, happily, I wasn't yet published. 6 years later, my daughter was all grown up. I accomplished what I wanted, which secretly was to stay home with her. I would like to say you know, I know you're supposed to say your calling was literary, but my calling was to be a mom. I'm her mother. And like, I lactate just thinking about it, frankly. Okay, that's such a good verb, I have to use this on. And even permit me a cute story, because so the funny thing about, and I tell this not as a sob story, but I want to be real. You should understand, like anybody can write, and the truth is we're a nation of storytellers, and you just need a visa in about 6 years. And what kind of happened in my life, though, was because we were charging everything, back then, you have Chili's here? Okay, well, we used to go to Chili's once a month. That was our big treat. She and I, right, she would get the brownie sundae, it was the whole thing. We went to Chili's because they took credit, and we only had credit. She, however, wanted to go to McDonald's, and back then, if you can imagine the dark ages, that McDonald's did not take credit cards. You needed scratch to go into McDonald's, and Mommy did not have any of that, which meant that my child was the only child in America who had not been in McDonald's by the age of 6. We would try by the McDonald's. She would, I go, it's bad meat. You don't. I'm saying anything. The Happy Meals, you have no idea how ubiquitous McDonald's commercials are. Anyway, fast forward. I finally get published, not for a living wage, $30,000, and I had, as you remember, how much debt. I mean, right. And so I had to pay back the debt. You can't live on anyway. I got a day job, but I took my child to McDonald's. And she was like so happy, and she was looking around the McDonald's like a child from the Ukraine. And so meanwhile, she had never been in one, so I had to teach her it's not like Chili's. So we would get in, I said, you get in the line. And then I would say, you look up there and there's the menu. And she looked at the menu and she said, but where are the appetizers? Yes, this happens. Every head turns. Who's this, like, brat? I go, no, believe me, she's just broke and doesn't know it, which really, every parent in this room knows exactly that's how it's supposed to be, right? And so I tell that because it's true, and it's also not it's to say that it was the happiest time of my life because I was doing the most important thing, which was being with her, and then I finally got a job. And of course I got to see her, permit me, this is off the point, but here she goes. The first week of kindergarten, I have my day job, I'm trying to write during the day. She goes to school, and they have, we used to call it show and tell, but they call it sharing or some other BSE name, right? It just means they tell all your business. So she comes in home from like the first day of school, and she said, Mom, you are not gonna believe this, but there's kids in my class that the mommy and the daddy live in the same house. I was like, that's disgusting. You get the idea, it was a fun time. And so basically I just started writing, and thanks to you, and thanks to libraries, you know, after I got nominated for an award, which I didn't win, but then I got nominated again for it, and I finally won it. And after a while, they put me in hardback, and I paid back the debt like yesterday. And basically, bit by bit, book by book, I got to be here to thank you for supporting your library. Now, sometimes people say, where do you get your ideas? And I want to talk about that in a minute because it relates to what I was talking about before with Nancy Drew. If you think about Nancy Drew, go back for 1 second. Everything, I think of it like a top line. Anybody ride horses here? Yay, well, I do. Well, I have a 30-year-old pony. We don't go very fast. You know, horses have a top line. Like, what's going on in the top line tells you a lot. Books are the same way. The top line plot of any Nancy Drew, I mean, you guys might be smarter than I am, but I don't remember a damn plot line. But I can tell you what's generally happening in Nancy Drew plot line. She has lost something, and usually it's a timepiece of some kind. It's a watch, it's a mantle clock, it's this kind of watch, it's this kind of watch. Once there's a staircase missing, that's incredible. I might lose my watch, but I know where my staircase is. But the point about Nancy Drew is none of that matters. What matters in Nancy Drew is the emotional truth of Nancy Drew, which is Nancy driving around in a car and being a girl just like you want to be, having fun, being brave. I said to myself, you need to write that, because that's what spoke to you, and frankly, I wasn't seeing much of that in crime fiction. All the strength in women that I know, like all of us, like my mom, write that, and so I started writing that. Now, every novel, it's not like a political thing, it's about a person, and it has to come out of something emotionally true in your life. So sometimes, where do you get your ideas? They come from at least in my case, something that really moved me, that I can, sometimes I live it or I remember it. Here's a quick example that's wacky that I remember. I remember walking with my mother one day, and we were in a part of South Philadelphia, which is the little Italian ghetto. It's filthy, but the food's delicious. And we stopped at this corner, and I think I was like 7 or 8, and a car pulled up to the corner. And it had curves, and it had fins. Remember fins on cars? It was really a very car-y car. And it was pink, and the woman at the wheel was very voluptuous, and piles of black hair, and red lips. And my mother laughed a little, and she said, oh, watch this. And she stepped off the curb, and she walked over to the driver of the car, which was stopped. And the driver saw her and made a face that was like this. And then the woman, driver, took her hand and cranked up, this before push buttons, cranked up the window right in my mother's face. And my mother starts laughing, and she comes back to the curb. And I said, who was that? And she said, that was my sister. Now this is where you're gonna get really disillusioned. Because this is where I tell you that my mother was the youngest of how many children? I'm gonna let you try to guess while I look for some water. 12. My mother was the youngest of 19 children. I know. Did you throw up in your mouth? I'm just... The first husband died of a heart attack. There's a surprise. I'd be like, dude, maybe you just ought to read it at night, just like me. How about that? In any event, I tell you this because even though there were so many of them, the youngest was my mother. They all came to our house on Sunday. because we were very tight. Like in my family, blood and tomato sauce are thick. And we're all in this little tiny house filled to bursting with crazy Italians. It was like either a dream or a nightmare. But the point of it is I knew all my aunts and uncles. How can that be your sister, is what I said to my mother. And she said, that's your Aunt Lena. You don't know her because we don't speak. We haven't spoken for 17 and a half years. And I'm like, why? Well, she says to me, she brought a gun to a wedding. See, you should have asked Amy Tan, because how's somebody classier than me? And what happens to me in my life as I get older, I remember that, because as I watch these all my aunts and uncles, whom I loved to the marrow, start to pass away, it made me think about Aunt Lena and why we never spoke to her. And it was basically your family feud, and I couldn't understand it. So what I decided was I was going to talk to my family, and half of them think that she brought the gun to a wedding, and the other half think that she brought the gun to a Holy Communion. And they see this as a difference. Although I will tell you there is a cash bar at either. Just the way we roll. And I was like, what is going on here? But what happened is when I really started to talk to my aunts and uncles about themselves, many of their immigrants, many of them were born in Italy. They came here searching for a better life, God bless them. And they had, though, if they were of that age, that if they were in Italy at the time, you were raised under fascism. Under fascist rule. The government was corrupt. Now, we're not going to get political. And even as bad as things may get from time to time in DC, it isn't like there. It isn't like when, people, it was lawless. It was corruption. There was no police call. There was no legal system. And so what happened to my family is that they grew up with this sense of they're anti-law, like you can't tell them what to do. And here I got to grow up in this incredible country, and I went to law school, I was a lawyer. And so what's interesting to me is when I interview them, I hear that even though they don't like law, in a way they made their own laws. And their law was that they couldn't agree on the facts, no matter what Aunt Lena did, they didn't really know, weren't really completely sure, but they knew it had to do with firearms near cheap liquor. And they made a rule, and their rule of the Flying Scottoline was, if you're going to do something so antisocial, we're never going to speak to you again. And I said, that's a book. Because I thought a little bit about how the emotionality of that, because also you're turning on your family, frankly for a reason that you don't even remember. But boy, they're stubborn. They dug in. So I wrote a book called The Vendetta Defense. The top line of it was about a woman who lives in the Pennsylvania suburbs. She's a natural blonde, so I wrote a little fiction for you. And she has to represent a man who's an Italian immigrant who will admit he killed somebody, but doesn't think it's murder under his laws. See where it came from? That's the emotionality of it. Now here's another story that's a little more relatable, because I know that your family is not as badly behaved as mine. But if you fast forward to my amazing kid, my daughter, who grew up and went to college in Boston, and if you've ever had to pick up your kid from school, maybe you can relate to this experience, because you have to pack all their stuff in a car. And if you have a girl, at least my daughter, she has shoes, she has tons of books, God bless her. She has DVDs, that's how far back ago this was. She's got everything, right? The parents of the boys, they have a basketball. I'm like, why am I packing? But anyway, it's me and her. We're packing. Of course, I have 4 dogs. I have to bring 2 because they're the spoiled ones. The only ones you can bring in public, I know. And so we have the car packed. We're like the Beverly Hillbillies. We got so much crap in this car. And we have on top of the car a box spring and her mattress. And I do it with the bungee cord. And we're getting ready to go. And she said, Mom, I want to bring my dorm rug. This crappy rug that's been on her floor for 4 years, because this is it, she's graduating. I'm like, honey, she said, Mom, it costs $36. I said, well, I'll pay you $50 if we can just throw it away. You can watch, it'll be entertaining. No, I really want I want to take the rug home. All right, okay, so do it, I deny her nothing, single mother, only child, come on. Put the thing on the thing, get in the car, start to drive. From Boston to Philadelphia in Connecticut, we encounter the worst rainstorm in the history of rainstorm. We are going 3 miles an hour because we have the mattresses soaked on top of the car. And then what happens next is that the red rug starts to bleed all over. I am driving, I have a white car. I had a white car. I'm driving a blood movie. It was like Stephen King. It was horrifying. People are pointing and laughing. I have the windshield wipers on, blah, 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 blah. I have no idea what color plasma is, but I think it's like a yellow-red. I mean, this was, and you know, basically, I look at her, and she looks at me, and we just laugh and laugh and laugh. We laughed for 3 days. It was too funny and too stupid, and just looked like the kind of stuff we do. And when I was driving her home, I thought, how many more rides are we gonna have like this? Right, because she was growing up, and I was sad about that. I was like, you have to let her go. And there's a joke, I feel like I'm making so many Italian jokes, but this is an Italian joke, but it also applies to all mothers and fathers, in my opinion. But it was like, what's the difference between an Italian mother and a Rottweiler? And the answer is that the Rottweiler eventually lets go. Like, we don't let go. And of course we don't, we're great parents, right? You're a good parent, you don't want to let go so easy. And that's the feeling I was having, and I was driving home, I got a little emotional. I was like, how many more times we used to love, since I finally got my dream of raising her, I picked her up at school, I took her to school. If I picked her up, I got ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. If I let her take the bus, or she got a ride from with someone else, by the time she got home, it was, school's fine. I knew I was gonna miss those days. So I was like, this is gonna all end, everything is sad. And then when I remember crossing the threshold at my house. And I thought to myself, you know, you're thinking about this the wrong way. You have framed this issue wrong. If you say you're gonna have a hard time letting her go, it's like you own her. She's not yours to let go. You don't own her. You just got to raise her. You got sent her, and you're really lucky. But she's not your property. And as soon as I thought that, I felt better. Like, my heart just eased. And I said, that's a novel. And that novel became Look Again. Now, here's the top line plot. Here's the mantle clock of Look Again. Let me think. A woman with fake blonde hair who lives in the suburbs of Pennsylvania. She gets home one day, and on her mail, she picks up her mail. And on the top is a card from one of those missing and abducted children places. And it's, have you seen these children? And she looks at this picture in the center, and she recognizes instantly the face of her 3-year-old boy who's adopted. And right away, she gets this terrible sense that something is wrong with her adoption, unbeknownst to her. And she has a choice on page 1. She can either decide to try to investigate what happened with the child's adoption and maybe lose the child, but the child's all she has. Oh, I can write that emotional truth. Or she can keep the secret, not tell anybody, not investigate, shut up, and keep her child. She can either keep the child or lose the child, depending on what she does next. The real question and the emotional truth in Look Again is, who owns a child? And I got the idea from that stupid red rug. So maybe it was worth the money after all. And the book did very well. Actually was chosen for World Book Night to represent the United States. And what's interesting is that I did the research, because what I really liked about the idea, and what's horrifying and will horrify you, is that in most states in this country, and I'm sure this is one as well, I couldn't find an exception, you can put up a child for adoption without proving that it's yours. Think about that. That is a true thing. If you try to go into Nordstrom's and buy shoes with a check, you will have to show forms of identification out the wazoo. But you can go, this is my baby and I want to put it up, and they take it. So, and that's the point, I think, also in all these novels. Even though there's an emotional truth to them, I do the research, they're about justice, they're about something important like that. Although emotionality is important too, because that's really about love. So you talk about emotional truth in fiction. And then what started to happen is I was reading the newspaper, I had this career, my daughter grew up, I have a little spare time, as I mentioned, I'm not dating, so I have a lot of spare time and a lot of energy. Anyway, and I was reading the newspaper one day, and I said to myself, you know who I miss? just like I missed Nancy Drew, I said, I miss Irma Bombeck. Do you remember Irma Bombeck? She was great. And I thought, I used to love reading her in the paper. And I said to myself secretly, I wish I could write some stuff like that, because I like to have fun and I like to joke around. But I didn't think I could secretly because I didn't have the normal family that she had. Like I grew up with Auntie and Harriet. I didn't have a husband. I don't have a couple. It's just this weird, funky little family, me and my daughter. Like, Thanksgiving, it's me and her. It's not bad, but it's not what you think is conventional. And what sort of happened is next is I went to a fundraiser for a library in a very nice place called Lagoon in McGill. I know it was very nice. I was glad I had my good bra on. As I do tonight, in case you're wondering. It's my tour bra. And so here I was, and I heard these women talking, and I didn't used to lead with the fact that I'm divorced twice, because it's a little embarrassing. And but then I heard some woman say, oh, I'm divorced 4 times, and this woman says I'm divorced 5 times. I'm like, hell, I need to move to Lagoon and McGill. I won't feel like such a loser all the time. But then I started to listen to the women, and one woman said I'm divorced 3 times, and I have 3 dogs. And then another woman said I'm divorced 4 times, and I have 4 dogs. And another, I have 2 times, and I'm like, I'm seeing a relationship between divorces and dog acquisition. And I'm going, this isn't so unlike your life, little Lisa, because you're divorced twice and you have 4 dogs. Like, you could get 2 more divorces and still, you got that cushion, you want that. And I was like, I looked around at these women and I said, you know what? It made me think, there's a lot of people who are divorced. There's a lot of people who are widowed, and you really don't know where your life will lead you. And they count too. We count too. So I said to myself, maybe you don't have to have a normal family to write about your life, because it's really about the life of a normal woman like us. And so I started writing those books, and the first one is called Why My Third Husband Will Be a Dog. And now you know why. It's not man bashing, it's dog loving. It's really just about trying to make yourself happy in your life. And if it takes a couple of furry things that you either buy or rescue or whatever it takes, I mean, I've rescued Pony, I have a 15-year-old chicken. Everything at my farm is geriatric. Nothing lays any eggs anymore. It's unbelievable, but I'm digressing. What was the point of that? Oh, so I started to write. So then what I said was, all right, you can spend all these times writing emotional truth, write literal truth. And so it became an article in the newspaper. It's called Chick Wit. You can read it on my Facebook page. Just like me on Facebook. I post it every Sunday. They're also in these books. As Sarah said, there's one coming out next month. I write them with my daughter. We write about life as a mother and daughter. It's not about us, truly. It's the same idea as Nancy Drew. It's about normal women. Because how we're a little bit of a force of nature. So I write about my mother. Let me give you a story about my mother. She was, well, you'll see what my point is in a minute. So my mother, when she sold the house, she was going to decide whether to live with me or my brother. And I said, listen, you should live with me, because she lived near me. And she said, I don't want to live with you because you're too boring. All you do is read books and write them. I said, yeah, ain't it great? Like, I pray to God. I'm so blessed. No, you're boring. I'm going to go live with your brother. Now, my brother is gay and lives in South Beach, Florida. So I don't have a chance, right? Because you know that, like, that right there is gay people have a lot more fun than straight people. And South Beach is a lot more fun than, like, a farm in Pennsylvania with ancient chickens. So she goes down there and lives with him, and it turns out there's a whole little enclave, because basically all his friends are gay, and all their mothers live there, and they're making meatballs for all these gay men. It's a whole thing. It's a little synergy. But they're happy. She's happy. Everyone's happy. I go, great. One morning, however, this is a true story, which I wrote about in these books. And you can Google this on the way home, and you'll see I'm telling you the absolute truth. It's a quiet Sunday morning in Miami, and she wakes up out of bed with a jolt, convinced there has been an earthquake. She's convinced she felt an earthquake. She goes across the hall and wakes up my brother. Frank, there's been an earthquake. He's like, Ma, go back to sleep. She doesn't. She goes across the street to the neighbor. She knocks on his door. Bruce, there's been an earthquake. He's like, Mary, It's Miami. Go back to sleep. She doesn't. For a reason none of us will ever know, she goes back into the house and she calls the Miami Herald, the newspaper, the 8th biggest metropolitan newspaper. She calls them up. My name is Mary Scottoline, and I would like to tell you there has been an earthquake. They're like, you might be nuts. She says, tell me your name. Because my mother has a list of the names. It's not the things to do list. And we just break the seal on what it's called, because you need to know what it's called. It's called a shit list. And you need one. You don't need one. But she was like a rolling Newcomb of hate. Who was she most mad at? Pops right to the surface. He takes her name. Evidently, he's got the list too. They hang up the phone. But it turns out to be a good thing that they've taken each other's name, because 5 minutes later he calls her and he said, Mary Scottoline, there has been an earthquake. She's like, I know! I tried to tell you that. You made me feel old and crazy. But what's so remarkable about this is that the earthquake did not occur in Miami. It occurred in Tampa. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? I don't know anything about geography, but I know that Tampa is up and Miami is down. And my mother is the only person in all of the first line of the article, which you can Google in the Miami Herald, says it was a quiet morning in Miami. And the only person in all of South Florida to feel an earthquake that occurred in Tampa was Mary Scottoline. And that's why they sent the news van to her house. She was on the television, and there was her cute little face, and underneath it said, Earthquake Mary. She loved it. And my brother got dressed up. My brother is the only gay man with no fashion sense. So my brother put on his best, are you ready? Mesh tank top. I saw this video. I said, why, Fred? Why would you wear them? He said, so they could see the map of Italy tattooed on my chest. I'm not making this up. Milan is his left nipple. This is my family, folks. It's unbelievable. And so they brought a microphone to my mother, and they said, how is it you're the only person who felt this earthquake that occurred somewhere else? But provably, she felt it because she called them at the exact moment that it occurred. What? And she said, I'm a mother, so I know these things. And that's who she was, and that's who we are a little bit, isn't it? One day, to fast forward, there was going to be a hurricane in Miami. A hurricane. Now, she was 4'11". I was like, Mom, you're going to blow away. You have to come north. I made her go up to see me. I made her fly up. She got off that plane, she was pissed. She was always a little like a Yosemite Sam. She gets off the plane, man, yeah, like that. And meanwhile, it's such a big deal hurricane, they're actually interviewing people at the airport in Philadelphia. People are getting off the plane. So they come to her with a microphone, and they say, did you come north because you were afraid of a hurricane? She said, I'm not afraid of a hurricane. I am a hurricane. Now, this is what I'm trying to say to you. Aren't we all? Don't we deserve to be heroes and heroines in books? Isn't that so much the strength of women that you know and your best friends and you got to get a kid to soccer and violin, and you got to make sure you have the birthday cards, and then you have the cupcakes that they need for school, which they tell you 11 o'clock at night. Who here has been on Staples? You have Staples here, right? My kid always told me every project she needed like an hour before Staples closed. I've been at Staples store going, I need out tag, you don't understand. Mothers are so incredible, and I wanted that to be in the air. I wanted us to see ourselves. And also I wanted to see mothers and daughters. I mean, my daughter and I, we fight, but we're each other's best friends. Like she said the other day, made me so happy. She said, Mom, no matter what, no matter how crazy you drive me, you're still going to be the person I call when something good happens or something bad. Isn't that kind of true? I mean, daughters, isn't that kind of true? I mean, now we have our moments. We write these books together, and they're very funny. we don't decide what we're going to write in advance. So for example, she wrote an article about how she was reading the wedding announcements in the newspaper. And she was saying, oh my God, she's 32 and she hasn't met somebody yet. And she needs to meet somebody because these people are getting married at 34 and she better find somebody. And then I had written an article at exactly the same time. It was about how I read the obituaries. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy died at 75. That is so unfair. Like I'm 62. Time's a wasting. You know, like we're both neurotic, just in different ways. But isn't that like a lot of mothers and daughters? I mean, I wanted it because I wanted positive images in the culture that were about mothers and daughters, because it really is a real special thing. It can also be a little combustible. You know, like there was a time, for example, when, and we write about this too, when you will know this if you're in the sandwich generation. So my daughter is visiting me at the same time my mother is visiting me, which means that I kind of want to shoot myself. I mean, I'm having a great time. And they're here, and my mother, so my daughter is in the kitchen, and she's at the kitchen island. She's reading a magazine. And she says, Mom, do you see here, it says here, that you're supposed to throw your plastic razor away. I know, we're going there. You thought this was going to be literary? You have to throw your plastic razor away every 4 to 7 uses. Mom, how often do you throw your plastic razor away? I said, well, as soon as it's rusty. If I get that orange stripe like I'm an usher, it's going straight out, baby. She says, that's not funny. I said, it's a little funny. It's a little funny. So then my mother comes down the stairs, and I say, Mom, it says here you're supposed to throw your razor out every 4 to 7 uses. When do you throw your razor out? She goes, I don't have any hair. So there you go. If you've learned nothing today, wait till you're 82. It's not going to be an issue. But she's still mad. She's mad. She's always mad. I go, Mom. I'm so mad. I said, what are you mad about? I'm mad, Lisa, because at home, my colander broke. The foot came off. I go, well, yeah, okay. That, you know the colander. I love that colander. She says, the dots were in the shape of stars. You know that colander. I go, I'm starting to think, well, I do know that colander. And at that time, I was 58 years old. I said, Mom, that means it was a 58-year-old colander. And she said, but I paid good money for it. Now, if you live something like that life, and you're in that moment, you know that it's a moment that is not about razors or colanders at all. Is it really? It's somehow about being in the middle of these generations where millennials, God bless them, it's not their fault. No shade, as my daughter says. She's like, you're a shade queen. I'm like, whatever that is, but they're taught to throw it away. Throw it away. And here's my mother's generation, who doesn't think you should ever throw it away, who doesn't think it should ever break, and I think partly, if I may say, because they didn't break. Like, we may have hard times that come and go, but man, we didn't have World War, we didn't have depression, we didn't have what they had, and by the way, at least in my mother's case, we didn't bury 18 of the people we loved the most, excluding Aunt Lena. It was probably the most fun of them all. That strength is what I want to write about. And partly because it's fun to write and it's fun to laugh, and especially if you write murder mysteries most of the time, or thrillers and all this dark stuff, it's fun to write something light, but more importantly, because it's something true. And having written so much fiction and so much nonfiction, I've come to understand that there doesn't really matter. It's true, it just has to be true. And it has to be a truth that is not sanitized BS truth, like a laugh track truth. Like sometimes I write just about what it's like to be a woman on your own, getting older, just getting older. How about I write about the time when I look in the mirror and I see my gray chin hair and I realize that I'm turning into an Amish man. Now, I plugged for you, in fact, tonight in the hotel. You plugged for me? Did anybody plug for me? Thank you. Well, thank you. That's love, man. I was in that hotel going, oh, I'm going to baby smooth to these people. They're in for a treat. The point is, and that's what I taught myself after 30 years of writing, at least a book a year now. I do 3 books a year. that if you write something true, so true, you almost don't want to say it out loud. Like I feel about the two divorce, but all the stuff you feel, I always think to myself, if it doesn't make me cringe, it's not going to make them laugh. And so you have to really think, and a lot of fiction writers will say, oh, truth matters. And I'll tell you for a minute why truth matters, and then we can open up to questions. Which is that if it's true, first off, I actually think people are oral, that they hear. I think truth has a ring. You know the stuff I told you is not BS. You can hear it. Just like you know when your kid's lying a little, right? Do you? You hear it. Remarkably, I didn't know my second husband was lying, but that's a different matter. Yeah, what I said. Truth has a ring to it. And when it's true, it speaks to you. All by itself. And that's the coolest thing about books. That's why books matter, and to me, that's why libraries matter. And let me suggest this to you as the test. Because here we are in this society, and we're much more spread apart than we used to be. We don't really work, and then we telecommute, we're all we're text. We walk down the street, nobody looks at people. I go to visit my daughter in New York, no one's looking up. I'm like, Lisa, maybe you'll meet somebody. I'm like, you never will meet anybody, because nobody will ever look up. So, we're so separate, but when you look at something that's a sort of a very interesting thing, at least in books, is that what has happened is the more separate we have become, the thing that has increased exponentially is book clubs. Who's here in a book club? Yes, 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 yes. So you tell me if I'm wrong. I think that there is a natural urge to be, people are some 5 years, 10-year book clubs, 20-year book clubs, sound right? They last a long time. Now, this is what I learned. Sometimes my book club will say to me, kid, want to come talk to us? I go, yeah, sure. I go over. The first 5 or 10 minutes are about my book. Cute are you guys? And you know what? The next time, everybody's off and running after that. They're talking about everything, and we're having the best time ever, and wine is involved. And it is so much fun, but I will tell you what happens every time. Because we're women and we apologize. So a woman will look up at me and say, we're so sorry, we're supposed to be talking about your book. And I will tell you what I say, honest to God, and sometimes I even get choked up, and now I'm not gonna, I'm trying to keep it together. I say, you're. Because I believe that about books. Because and think about it a minute, you know better because you're inside a book club, but when you talk about a part of a book that meant something to you, you talk about yourself. When you talk about a part that didn't mean something to you, or a book that worked for you, or a book that didn't work for you, and an author you hate, you're inevitably going to talk about yourself. And so there's an intimacy that is built between the members, right? And there's also, I think, frankly, an intimacy with self. When you read a book, you go, that's just like me. Oh, I thought I was alone. Oh, you mean I'm not the only person on earth who gets a little lonely, but I sleep with 4 dogs? I sleep with 4 dogs. I mean, what is, that truth is the glue. And it's why the arts matter. It's why books matter. And I think it only happens around a book. It's just go back to Kill a Mockingbird again. It's when Atticus is sitting with Scout. And he says to her, if you really want to know somebody, you have to walk in their shoes. Well, that's true. You can do that per se in some physical sense. But when you read a book, you are actually in their consciousness. Ann Beattie, the novelist, says that a novel is a unified consciousness. You are entering someone else's, well, I think of it as soul. Like if you've read me before, you knew I was going to be this way. Didn't you just a little? So, and that's why I love my readers, because basically, we have the same souls. Like if you don't like my books, I'm happy you're not in the room. It's just no fun at all. And so that's what books do, and that's why I think books matter so much and libraries matter so much, because it isn't about the book at all. It's about the bond. It's about the intimacy. It's about the empathy that it builds. It's about the community that it's built. Writ large, to me, no joke, it's about democracy. It's about what does it mean to be an American. Vote for me. I've libraries for the community that you build and nurture, and to all of you for taking care of each other in this community, because I don't think there's anything else that matters. Not like this. So anyway. All right, ask me questions. How are we on time? I didn't look, I was in a little fugue state. Start to go, like, get a look. Yes, please.
Actually, I kind of have a two-part question.
Go ahead, I'd like two-part question.
You're an author, so your whole point is to sell books, but you love libraries.
Well, first off, I'm still a person. And secondly, I will remind you that libraries buy books. They don't get them free. I have to buy them. And since I am a library person, now it's true. It's true. I mean, obviously, if there's going to be somebody said to me, I'm 112 on the list at my library, and I was like, well, that's great, and that's not great, because you might go. I mean, I guess what you're saying is there's 100 sales you missed, but I don't think that way. And also, I must tell you, just as a book person, I was very happy to make the bestseller list and all that. But when I made the reserve list, I felt like, damn, you're one of those people that you used to wait for. So that's how I think. And I just value libraries too much. I just do. You can't value them too much. Was that 2 parts?
No.
Oh, it's see, I remembered.
Since you read so much,
Yes.
don't you have a little trouble not incorporating somebody else's story or book that you've read?
So that's an excellent question. Do you hear when you read a lot, do you have trouble not incorporating their work? And the answer is, I have no trouble not doing that. Because it's like I said, I mean, I can tell you the emotional truth behind After Anna. It proceeds from inside me. Nobody else can, it doesn't even affect it. It's like I'm in a little bubble wrap. My little idea comes from inside. I have no outline when I write. You're not surprised, are you? I live my life without an outline before they go to the bed. Now, people say, do you know how it ends? I don't even know how it middles. Are you impressed yet? Hell! I write 2,000 words a day. I write 3 books a year. I write the standalone in April, which is, usually about family and justice somehow. And that one is a standalone novel, which means it resolves all at once. And then I write 2 funny books with my daughter. Where'd you go? I can't find you. Which comes out in July. No, you don't have to say sorry. See, she said she was sorry. All she did was sit in the chair. How dare you? I needed to see you. And in August, I do a series, which is a whole different matter about an all-women law firm. We can talk about that if you want. But they are proceeding from something within. So I can read constantly, which I love to do. There's no danger I would have anybody's ideas. And by the same token, if any of you are thinking about writing, I would really encourage it. And don't even worry if your idea isn't original. You told it. The way we tell it, it's the way you tell it. You know what my example is? You could just close your eyes at any minute and think of either of your parents and how they would tell a story. That's just called voice, right? People have a unique way of telling stories. And if you're true to yourself, you're not going to tell a story the way somebody else would tell a story. Even the same damn story. I said damn. Yes, please. Yes.
Would you name some of your favorite authors currently that you're reading?
I am such a big, yes, I would be happy to name my favorite. I don't have a single favorite, however. It's just like food. People say, what is your favorite food? No, food is my favorite. I'm on Weight Watchers, it's killing me. I lost 12 pounds. That's how I can fit into these pants and this bra. Sorry, is this too much? Okay, I think that. I love crime fiction. What? You're right, yeah. Me, no proud. Go like this. I'm sure she'd be proud. Talking about my underwire at the library. So I love all of the crime fiction people that are quality. David Baldacci, Mike Connolly, Linda Fairstein. I love I love general fiction. Kristen Hanna, Jodi Picoult. I love memoir. Augustine Burroughs, David Sedaris is funny. Mary Carr. I read nonfiction too. I read honestly, I have nothing else to do. And I can deduct the books. This is a great combination for a girl like me. So like basically, if you, I read it, believe me, I read it. Yes, please.
I was wondering, how many years were you a lawyer before you quit, and are you married to Nunzio? You seem like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see you in
Well, okay, so the answer is how long were you a lawyer, and do you want in regular years or dog years? Because lawyer years, like if you're a lawyer for 1 year in a big law firm, it's like 17.5. It's like $1,000,000 years. But I really was a lawyer for about either 5 or 6 years before my daughter was born. And so the question is, so she's saying, are you like Mary D'Annunzio, who's one of the series characters? I sort of have this all-woman law firm, and in Feared, it's an all-women law firm, and they're getting sued for not hiring a man. And then somebody turns up dead. Bingo. So am I more like Mary or more like Benny? Honestly, I think I'm a lot more like Mary. I wrote my first book about Mary because, and that we talked about, not having a woman lead, because frankly, I really love being a lawyer. It was interesting. And I think it's gotten some bad press, but it's a profession that I was proud of. And I think I practiced it in a way that I was proud of. And everyone I know did too. But I'll tell you something, when I stood up in front of a jury, I was scared. And I'm reading the books, all these guys, they're never scared. It didn't feel real to me. And I think secretly, even the men I worked with were a little scary. So I had to tell when I was in front of a jury, I used to get red. I had red blotches. I would have to wear turtlenecks. It would be summer in Philadelphia. I looked like Sister Bertreel. Is that for a literary reference? Toss that right up. And I gave those blotches to Mary. I think I'm much more like Mary. I'm short and insecure.
Plus, she's Italian.
Yes.
Her family sounds just like yourself.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not writing fiction really at all. But she's a much better Catholic than I am. I'm a little pagan. Yes, please, yes.
Come up with your twists and turns and then get them all to come together.
Aw, what a nice thing to say. She said, how do you come up with the twists and turns and get them to come together at the end? I swear to God, I sweat blood. Somebody said, I think it was like Hemingway. Well, Hemingway is famous for saying, write drunk, edit sober. And that's it, I don't write drunk. But I just try to write the whole story out. And I actually, since I only start with an idea, I go, well, what would she actually do next? What would this character do next? Whether it's a male or female, I've read both. And what would the people around her do next? And then I get wonderful reviews. This book was very well reviewed. And they say things like fast-paced and all page-turner, but not without substance. I mean, I think I'm writing for really smart people. I think I'm writing entertainment for smart people. And so what happens is if you start to think about what the people do in a funny way and you invent them, we are what we do. I mean, we are the character. If the character acts, then it becomes the action of the book, and it also defines the character too at the same time. And I just try to follow along. It's hard. And I have times when I get stuck. Here's a quick story. I was in the middle of a book, and I had Betty Rosato in a skyscraper in Philadelphia. And she was, it doesn't matter they're set there, it could be anywhere, just a place I know that I don't have to leave my house to go research. And so, she's in the skyscraper, and the skyscraper is surrounded by police. And she's got to get out of the skyscraper realistically. Now, I like to joke around, but I do take a lot of pride in making sure that all the research is right, all the law is right, all the criminal procedure is right, the police procedure. It has to be realistic. And my readers expect it. So, I can't get her out in some, can I just say half-ass way? It has to be real. I have to get her out in some way. I want somebody to put the book down and go, oh, that could never happen. So here I was in my house in the suburbs, and I had no outline, as usual, and I didn't know how she would get out realistically. And I was like, where's all the twists and turns? How are you gonna do this? And so I got in the car and I drove into the city, and I parked. I said, you're just gonna have to walk around a building and see how to get out. And this happened before 9/11, this is going back. And you were a little more free to wander around if you just talk real fast. They're like, what did she say? I'm like, nothing. I wander all around the skyscraper. I'm trying to figure out how to get out if there were police. I can't find all the entrances have security. I'm so screwed. Another literary term you should write down. But this place had an underground parking garage, which is where I parked. And so I went down to my car again, and I swear to God, this is embarrassing to me, but I actually said a prayer. I was like, dear God, please help me. And then I looked up, and there was in the ceiling a hole. It was like a big square hole. And I thought, that's so funny. It reminded me of the cartoons, you know, the Acme hole that they would take, and then they would flop it on something and it would wiggle. And I was like, this is so, what is this thing? So I had a Ford Expedition, you know, the big, and I pulled it up under the hole, and then I climbed on top of the car to see what the hole was. At this point, like, security notices, right? He's in the booth. He doesn't want to get off his ass in the booth. He's like, lady, what are you doing? I'm jumping on a car. What does it look like? He comes over. He's like, you need to get down. I said, well, I'll come down if you tell me what this hole is for. And he says, well, I'll tell you if you come down, because I have a little litigation right there, which I lose. But what's interesting about the hole is that the hole reeked. The hole smelled like cow manure. And I'm like, what is going on in that hole? And I said, what is that? And he said, all right, I'll tell you. This is the ceiling of the parking garage, but it is the floor of the corporate atrium above. And linden trees are planted in the corporate atrium for decoration. They are fertilized at the root, and you have discovered the service tunnel that is used to fertilize them. And I thought to myself, I know it exists because I can smell it, and if I were as tall as Benny, I could get in it, and I could imagine that she could hang out there for like maybe 8 hours, and then the police would go, she gave us the slip, and then she'd come and make a really good scene because she'd have cow manure on her clothes, and I'm like, well, that may be cow manure to you, but that is chapter 4, illegal tender. And it was. Like, sometimes research gets you out of it. Sometimes it puts you in it. But either way, you just have to persevere. Yes?
What's your favorite? What is your #1 all-time book?
Well, I'll tell you a book that I say, because people say that, but you know, sometimes I'm reading something and I go, this is pretty great. I'll tell you a really wonderful book. Angela's Ashes is a wonderful book. And it's not just about what a guy, you know, Frank McCourt wrote it, sadly he's passed, he was a teacher, he's such a wonderful, I love teachers. And you can say that it's about an Irish Catholic childhood, but it's really about growing up and encountering adversity and finding humor in it. I look for the essential truth. So that's really, I only have that answer because they said, will you contribute to a volume of a book that changed my life? And I thought, in a way, that book did change my life. Because even though the chickens will produce an egg occasionally, they would die for an egg in that family. Every morning when I have an egg, I go, thank you, Frank McCourt. Yes, please, look, we're all serious now. We're weeping. Any other questions? Yes, please.
You said that you write 2,000 words a day.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of that redo, or is it straight going ahead?
That's a great question. For 2,000 words a day, is any of that redo, or is that going straight ahead? It is not redo. That's my only rule. I have to get the story down so I know what it is. And I must tell you, it's probably a good thing I live alone because I'm anxious when I don't know, you're like, But the great writer who wrote Ragtime, E.L. Doctorow, said, you don't have to know the whole journey. You can just travel it in the length of your headlights. I'm paraphrasing. But I love that quote, because obviously it speaks to anyone whose life turned into a shit show at some point. I mean, it speaks to that you can't always plan, that maybe you're just gonna have to trust and have faith and just do a little bit. I think of it when I have to clean the closet, like it's spring. I'm like, you have to clean your closet. There's craps in the bottom, it's dust everywhere. And you go, well, you just get started and do a little bit and then a little bit. So I write the whole thing out. And I'm not allowed to go back, ever. Because you could be polishing a book that doesn't finish. And I really am sort of known for surprise endings or twists at the end. And I also, just as a reader, really think that a lot of people don't work hard enough on their endings. They have to deliver. Right? You have to get kids to go, oh, now it's over. I'm exhausted. you know? So I go all the way through, and then once I have a book, I can edit it. And then I'm happiest I am, because then I just get to try to make it better. Then they have, New York, they call you, they're like, you have to give it to us, because I'm like everybody, you know, could I look better? Yeah, I could look better. Whatever it is, you want to try to do better. But not while you're in the first draft at all. My little motto is get it down, then get it good. 30 books at work, yes.
So that's a rule that you have. Do you have other rules that you follow about, like, you have one main character and then you have...
Oh, no, none of that stuff's rules. Because that stuff has to be like, what are you feeling that time? What's the thing that happened to you? Like after Anna, you know, because I didn't tell you about my delicious second marriage. Anyway, it was weird because I don't miss him at all. But I did have 3 stepdaughters. And I was the primary custodian. They moved in with me. So I went from being a single mother of 1, and then having 4 girls under my roof, which was wonderful. And I loved them, and they were great. Who asked it? I have to see you. Oh, and then when the marriage ended, which is a long and, well, it's actually a pretty short story, but I'll try to keep it. He moved out, and they were by then ready for college anyway. Anyway, I missed them. And I was thinking about family, because the truth is, families get estranged. I mean, as a former stepmom, I'm like an ex-mother. They're my ex-children. That's weird. And I think about them a lot. And I wrote that, I said to myself, you should write about that in After Anna. So After Anna begins with a mother who has lost custody of her child. Why? Because she had postpartum psychosis. Because I became very interested in postpartum depression. Postpartum psychosis is a different thing, but it's treatable, thank God, and I learned all about it, and I won't keep you from it. But After Anna is about what is a mother, because it kills her that she's not with her kid, and her whole wish is that she would have her kid back, and it's her daughter, and she misses her, and even though she gets married, and she has a stepson that she loves, and she takes great care of, she wishes her daughter would come back in her life, and then her daughter does, and it's a nightmare. What was your question? Bradley Cooper is the answer. Yes. How do you come up with character names? You know what? That's harder than you think. Because everything about a character, I won't bore you, but you have to know a lot about a character more than you'll ever put in the book. What they like to eat, what they like to watch on TV, how they dress, how do they talk, and their name is part of that. I'll tell you a quick funny story. So what I used to do, which I don't do anymore, is there's so many great library fundraisers, and so I would auction off a character name. So if the library wanted money, you know, like this fancy people would pay all this money have their name in my book. And they would give the money to the library, and then I would have this whole list of 20 names that I would have to figure. Now, I stopped doing that when, 1 year, this was their answering machines, I got a message on my answering machine. This very nice woman said, "Hi, I'm the person who bought your name for your book at the library fundraiser, and my name is Wanthita Chandru Fuffin." I thought it was my brother, like, playing a joke. I said, "Are you frigging kidding me?" So I call her up, I go, "Listen, is that really your name?" Like, I'm Scottoline, I have room to talk, but and I'm like, "Yes, but you don't have to," she was Thai. And she said, "You don't have to use it." And I'm like, "That's crappy. You made a deal. That you gave them money, bless you. I'm going to use it." And so I put it, actually it was legal tender. I said, one of the drawers was named Wanthita Chandru Fuffin, a name no one could pronounce. Because every reader's going to get there and go, "What, hi?" Anyway, the answer to the question is to try to think of a name that would fit the character and also help the reader understand the characterization. Yes, please.
Where do you write, pencil or computer?
I write, so you should follow me on Facebook or anything like that. It's only me, there's no massive marketing machine. And you see pictures of my actual office, because I got a treadmill desk, which the dogs sit on. Actually, I got a treadmill desk, and then I eat popcorn while I work. And then the popcorn goes down the treadmill. And the dogs will sit at the end. This is so funny. Anyway, I work in my office. I do not use it. I have terrible handwriting. If you get a book later, I'll try to sign it nice to impress you, but I have very stinky handwriting. I I don't know, I need a computer. I'm a very bad typist, but it's good because you have to type and walk at the same time, which, what? But I do it, but it works if you have a stinky typewriter. Yes, please.
Do you have any books you haven't finished?
Do I have, oh yes, yes I do. I have a horrible book that I read on the plane, I'm like, this is,
No, that you've written.
oh no. How dare you? That's not the third part of your two-part question. All right, other questions, then we probably, how many, two more? One more. One more, sir. You're a good sport.
You mentioned Hemingway. How do you see him as a writer, and could his way of life exist in today's society?
Oh, shit. I'm so sorry. That's way too smart a question for me. So you heard that's actually interesting because I am an English major, so I'm honored by that question. The question, what do you think of Hemingway and could his way of life exist right now? I thought Hemingway was terrific. I love the simplicity of his sentences. He was writing about real truth and paring it down, and not any of the blather or BS or excessive exposition, and I thought he was a beautiful writer. So, now, I don't know, you tell me, do you think you could live? I can't say I loved it. I can't say, like I'm a vegetarian, so all the shooting of the elephant stuff, I'm not sure I'm on board with the shooting of the elephants. I don't know if his way of life can live now, but I think it's a good example of somebody who, when you talk about voice, apropos your question of could you read, like Hemingway is a much better example than me, of somebody who, like Hemingway could read all day and night, I'm sure, and nothing he would ever produce would sound anything but like him. Because his voice was so authentic. That's why I think it abides. You can still pick it up, and it's still, doesn't it feel modern to you? In the way that To Kill a Mockingbird. Really, some classics that are that beautifully written resonate now and look modern. That's incredible. Fitzgerald's the same way, I think. Fitzgerald can feel very modern in a way that Henry James will not. Oh my God, I just got so English majoring on me. All right. No time for any last question. I feel like I don't want to end on that note. That was so pedantic. Somebody asked me something about, yes.
Why do you have the Bradley Cooper in your office?
That's a question. Why do you have Bradley Cooper in your office? You have to see. It's just a fun thing because when I think he's so cute. And then permit me, the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. All right. You can give us that one because we're such a bunch of losers. We never did it before. We'll never do it again. And since I live alone, and you know, I was all a little lonely that day. So everyone's at Super Bowl party. I don't have any Super Bowl party. So then I made a big cutout of Bradley Cooper and we watched the game together. And then everybody was like, call him Flat Bradley after Flat Stanley. And then everybody's like, I love Flat Bradley, I love Flat Bradley. I said, I do too. And on that note, thank you very much. Newsletter. If you want to sign up for it, I will not spam you or stalk you, but it will tell you the next time I come down because it would be great if we could know. And when I sign books, it'll be a sheet. Okay, Sarah, say stuff.